This is a Ben Frank Connection presentation.
Hello
What's
there.
going on?
Hi.
Welcome back.
Yes, it is a brand new episode of Wrestling with Life.
Yes,
we are
yes,
happy
yes.
that you are joining us today to watch this wonderful episode we've got planned for you.
Wonderful.
This is episode number 4.
Yes.
If you are a Patreon member of ours, you are watching this on Monday. If you are not a Patreon member, which we suggest you join because
yes,
there's
ASAP.
wonderful
Do that.
rewards for you. But if you are not, you will be watching this on Friday on YouTube. So we're
Yes.
happy that you are with us today because we've got a great interview planned.
Absolutely.
And so, Sean, let's talk about who we've got today.
We have illustrator and comic book artist of all things wrestling and the like and everything else in between.
Mm-hmm.
I hope I don't mess up the name.
Okay, let's go for it.
Hang on, I gotta find it real quick.
No. All right, I got it, man.
Tanya Dorph-Mankey. They got that right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hey,
Okay.
nailed it.
I was like, listen.
First try everything. See, that's why I let you do the names because it's always like a toss-up. Is he gonna get it right? Is he gonna get it
Listen,
wrong?
sometimes
nailed it.
you never know because that I saw that I was like, I hope I don't butcher that name.
I mean, I feel like it's pretty self-explanatory the way it's spelled, but you never know, right?
Yeah, right.
I mean, I thought of Mankey as in, the
Come on.
Pokemon Mankey. I was like, all right, Mankey, that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
Dorf just threw me off.
Mm-hmm.
I gotcha. So I'm going to start off with this question because if I am correct in understanding this, you're in New York, correct?
Yes.
Okay.
New York.
So I'm living in a snowstorm. What are you living in? Do you have snow as well?
Yes, there is snow, but I did not go outside today, so I'm
I actually had snow
admiring-
as well.
admiring
John.
it from my window.
Yeah.
This might
Yeah,
be
we
the
had
first
snow.
time you and I have snow together, buddy.
Listen, it's been 3 years of no snow, and I hate it. I absolutely hate it. I need snow in my life, even if it's just a little flurry.
Oh, boy.
And we finally got some snow.
Yeah,
and-
you should come here and enjoy this snow because
I love it. I love it.
So most people live on ground like this. I live on a hill like this.
Right?
So,
yeah, it's
no.
pretty rough. I've been there a few times,
But every time I've
getting
had
to park
snow,
there is rough.
yeah, every time I've had snow, Sean has had rain. So this is a snow-filled trio today.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
All right.
So,
Well, go ahead, Sean.
why don't you
Fire it
begin? Tell us how you got into this world, between wrestling, the illustrations, the comic books. Like, how did that all start?
Well, I mean, I've been an artist my whole life. It's just kind of depended on what I was drawing.
Right.
But for wrestling, I started watching in like 2017. So I'm not
fresh.
Yes, yeah.
Okay,
so I'm not
fresh
one
eyes.
of the people who has like any sort of nostalgia glasses. Like,
Right.
I don't know
Gotcha.
most of the history, any of the older wrestlers. That's like just so not. I have like no sense of that sort of stuff. I've obviously been picking things up, but
Right.
But like Kenny Omega was my introduction to
Nice.
wrestling.
Oh, very nice.
I mean, that's a
Yeah.
good start.
Yeah,
That's a good
so
start.
Kenny versus Okada.
Oh.
The the three like wrestle. It's like
Mhm.
Wrestle Kingdom
Yep.
for two of them, and then one of them was the other one that I'm blanking on the name of, where they like the G1. Yeah, the G1.
The G1.
So
Yeah.
I feel like you're setting yourself up for failure there because you're setting the bar real high right off the top.
Real high.
Not that,
Yeah.
not that guys like Orange Cassidy aren't up there, but you're setting that bar kind of high. Like,
Mhm. I mean,
But
if anything's going to get you into wrestling,
Right.
You know,
yes, exactly.
pageantry, the
Mhm.
incredible stamina of the hour-long matches,
Right.
storytelling of the multiple
Right.
matches over time. you know?
Absolutely.
Mhm.
It seems
Makes
that
total sense.
Orange Cassidy has a hook on you because you wrote or you made 2 short stories
Mhm.
One being The Plight of Orange Cassidy, and two being the more silent story, Spitting Image.
Yeah.
What's those two kind of about? Like, is there actual story to them, or is it just like a leave it up to your own interpretation kind of thing?
I mean, a lot of my comics, so those two plus the one I did about Ultramantis most recently called
Yes.
Laces.
Yes.
My
as well.
say it one more time.
And Hallowicked as well.
Yes.
Yes.
Well,
Mhm.
the Hallowicked one is less in this vein. That one I did after speaking to him about his storyline that he
Right.
wrote for Chikara.
Mhm.
Yes.
And I suddenly was just so inspired by it. So I made
Right.
that comic,
Yeah.
and that was a separate sort of thing where I just kind of illustrated this story.
Right.
Whereas the other ones that I did, so Plight of Orange Cassidy, Spitting Image, Laces, and then the Chuck Taylor one, Tag Team,
Yes,
are all
yes.
about kind of blurring the lines of shoot and kayfabe, which
Okay.
I feel like people do. I mean, wrestlers do a lot, so I wanted to tap into that. And then also about how your gimmick is parts of you as
Right.
a wrestler.
Mm.
So, and like specifically in Plight and Spitting Image with Orange, how the crowd wants his character,
Right.
and how that takes you over, and you become this person that you have to basically be for a lot of the time when you're performing, when you're out and people meet you in public, they want
Mhm.
a certain thing from you.
Right.
And the way that, especially in Plight, the way that the audience like wants what you do, even if it's destroying yourself.
Yeah.
So that was like
Yeah.
breaking into making comics for wrestling. That was like a very important theme to me, because I know I love wrestling, but I also hate when they get hurt.
Right. Right.
Yeah. Yeah.
No one likes when they get hurt.
Yeah.
That's not a good. That's not good.
Yeah. And I just love, one of my favorite parts of wrestling is watching the way that they make something that's fake look real.
Oh, yeah.
So like
Mm.
any
It's,
way
it's
that
such a fascinating art in itself. Like we've said it multiple times on the show that really it's an art form. Wrestling is an art
Oh,
just
yeah.
as much
Yeah.
as
Yeah.
comic book is an art, or writing is an art, or drawing is an
Absolutely.
art. Wrestling is an art form, and if you mess up the art form, you're gonna get hurt. Like
Yeah.
it's a painful art form.
both performance,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you were talking about talking with Hallowicked and kind of going through the story that he had come up with for some of your other books like Orange Cassidy and Ultramantis. What kind of input do they have in the book itself? Is there storyline input? Is there visual input, or is this just something that comes from your mind?
It's all me.
Okay.
I've definitely, well, I mean, I've given all my comics to them. And they all
Okay.
seem to like them and
Yeah.
appreciate that I make that work for them.
Sure.
Well, yeah, I mean, of course.
Yeah. And I mean, after I did the Ultramantis mask comic, he did have his mask removed at the following LVEC show.
Yes.
Which was, I was so sad to miss because I was on a trip. So
Yeah.
of course I I was so frustrated.
You actually designed his mask for the holiday hangout. How did that feel to see him wear it?
Unbelievable. I marked out so bad when he came out. I
Right.
screeched. It was so exciting.
Where did you get like the inspiration for that design from? Did you talk to Ultramantis about it? Did he even know, or did you just do it?
No, it was totally a surprise.
Oh, okay.
Nice.
Ultimo Ant, he makes Mantis's gear.
Right.
Mhm.
And him and I know each other from me going to shows and stuff like that. So he
Sure.
reached out to me to commission me to do that as a surprise.
Nice.
To make the mask for him.
That's cool.
And
That's very cool.
yeah, and Mantis, he's super into mid-century Christmas stuff, like all of it, like his tattoo sleeves are that.
Yeah.
And his previous masks, like Ultimo had to like really find like the perfect Christmas fabric for his
Right.
mess.
Right.
Sure.
So I just drew inspiration from those sorts of illustrations, and just made them mantis. And
Nice.
it was super fun. It like totally was one of the only things I drew for months, like because I've had some art block. So, but like a mantis will always inspire me.
Nice.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah.
Very cool.
Mhm.
Talking on the art side of things, let's talk about that a little bit. So you said that you've been an artist all your life. Was
Mhm.
art something that you were just immediately drawn to? And did you have any like formal schooling to train in the arts, or is this just fantastic natural talent?
I
Maybe
mean,
even in both.
yeah. I mean,
Well, I'm sure it
is.
Sure.
I come from a family of artists, so my dad was an artist.
there you go.
So my parents were very encouraging my whole life.
Mhm.
They were very supportive of me doing art. And I went to an arts high school here in New York City. I went to LaGuardia.
Oh wow.
So that was like
Nice.
4 years
Nice.
of art stuff, which is basically like foundations level art for 4
Mhm.
years.
Gotcha.
And then I also went to college for art. I have a BFA in printmaking.
Wow.
I went to
Nice.
University of Buffalo. And then since then, it's just practice. Not, I just don't
Right.
stop drawing. So you just get better and better, right?
What's it like going to like an art high school like LaGuardia? How is that like different from a regular high school? Because I'm very fascinated by the idea of these like high schools for the arts and things like that.
Mhm.
It's fascinating to me. But what's that like?
Well, there were no jocks. We were
Right.
all
Okay.
like, so there, it was pretty much everyone is an art nerd, essentially.
Right.
I gotcha.
So it was 6 different majors. It was
wow.
art, instrumental, vocal, drama, tech,
Mm.
and dance.
Nice.
So a whole slew of people who were all interested in art in some way.
Mhm.
And you just kind of all, I don't know, like there were no really, I mean, people did sports in my high school. I
Right.
certainly was not one of them.
Mhm.
And it was like an 8-story high school.
Wow.
We had escalators,
Man. Yeah.
Oh man.
See,
Yeah.
that's just like a dream high school. I mean,
Right? That's like a dream come
I was
true.
I was a band geek in high school, so like I'd run the gamut on music stuff, but that would have been, that sounds very incredible, like a great opportunity.
I mean, all I know about what high school experience is from like movies or whatever. So
Right.
when I
Yeah.
when I say, oh, like there were no jocks and no nerds, in the sense that like you didn't have, I just never felt like there was like people pushing you into lockers and like
Right.
giving you swirlies
Right.
in the bathroom,
All the classic high school shenanigans. Right.
Yeah.
Right.
No, don't need any of that.
Mhm.
No, not at all.
So getting into the wrestling a little bit, because this kind of fascinates me about like what you're doing. A lot of it seems to be very Chikara heavy, and
Yes.
and we are, but the thing about it is we are like in a post Chikara world
Yeah.
now. Obviously, and we on the show here
Yeah. Unfortunately, yeah.
but we know, like, we know a lot of the people from Chikara. I was a regular there over the course of probably 5 years, and so I got to know a lot of the people there, and we get to see a lot of them in various places like the LVAC and
Yep.
Flying V and all these different
Mhm.
companies, where it's almost like we're still seeing our Chikara friends, but
Yep.
your work is very Chikara influenced. So how did you get into Chikara, and where did like that love of Chikara come from?
I mean, so I had been watching AEW since it started because
Nice.
I liked Kenny and I liked the Bucks, so I had been watching them. And then when they made AEW, it was like a huge deal. Like
Oh,
I
yeah.
remember when they announced
Yeah.
All
Yep.
Out, All In, All In,
All in.
All
and
in.
then All Out. And like me and my friend had been like, maybe we'll go, So, and then so I'd been watching that, and then I had stopped watching during the pandemic. I came back to it, and I kind of got into a little bit of like the fandom side, so like meeting people on Twitter and stuff like that. And I actually, it was I had my friend Rach, who we both really liked Orange and Chuck Taylor, and best friends in general. We just kind of just connected, and she was like, you should watch some of their indie stuff. And so I was like looking at like the Beyond wrestling stuff, and she was like, no.
No,
You got it. You have to watch.
No.
She very specifically was like, look what Chuck Taylor used to dress up as. And it was Mr. Azerbaijan versus Ultramantis. That was my first ever Chikara match that I ever watched. And it's the one where Mr. Azerbaijan keeps Ultramantis is working his tailbone.
Right.
So he keeps grabbing his butt and chasing her around the ring.
Right.
And I was like, yes, this is exactly what I want.
Amazing, right.
Yes. And that was just that was it from there. I started watching like gentlemen's club matches.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah.
Immediately Mantis was like, I was like, who is this man? Like, I need to know more about this bug man.
A legend.
And then that got me into Spectral Envoy, which introduced me to Hollow Wicked and Frightmare.
Yeah.
Obviously it's no secret. I'm a huge fan of Orange and Chuck. So then I was watching the Colony stuff, watching Fire Ant, Soldier Ant matches, watching Los Ice Creams.
So good.
Good.
Just
so many good names.
It just like spread out. And I just got really into everything.
Yeah, there's a mid-season match between the Gentleman's Club and Princess Kimberly, the Ice Creams, and Jervis Cottonbelly, and that's usually the match I start with when I show people about Chikara. Like that was the first Chikara match I showed my wife, and I'm like, this is genius because it's
amazing.
It's what we're looking at in like comic books and superhero movies, and it's all coming together in this one place right there in front of us, and the story development and the characters, and there's just so much to draw you in there. It was a magical place in time. It really was.
And you have the comic book stuff, and then you also have like Eddie versus Claudio, which is
I mean, they've had, they've had Zack Sabre Jr. there. Like, they've had some really, technical matches there. I mean, not that this was Chikara, but when Chikara was running with Beyond Wrestling, they were doing, this was right before they started the feud between the two, where they were doing like the Chikara versus Beyond shows, but they were having like double shots at the Wrestle Factory. So they would have like Chikara in the afternoon and then Beyond right after. And I mean, they were bringing in guys like MJF was there long before he was even on TV. So a lot of great things going on there. Just a great time in wrestling to be a fan. What would you say draws you to certain characters? Like, is there certain characters in Chikara that you're like, what would you say kind of draws you to certain people over others?
I mean, I'm trying. So, like, I guess you would say the people that I'm most drawn to are probably the ones that I draw the most, and
best friends.
So like best friends,
quest friends,
quest. Yeah, friends. Oh yeah, that's yeah. I'm trying to think. I mean, like Orange is just good at what he does. He's great. Like he could put on a really good match.
He's so good.
And so can Chuck. Like, as much as I feel like he always like talks down about himself,
right?
But he's like a great base, and you have to have a good base to have high flyers be able to do moves.
Sure.
And he's and he's funny, and I really like comedy matches. I think they're great. And then you have someone like Mantis, who is incredibly charismatic. He has his character worked down to like a T. He knows exactly how to like use his voice to be able to tell you who he is, his body movements. Like he hardly does, like even at LVAC shows, like he doesn't do a lot of wrestling anymore, even when he's
Right.
in the ring, because he's older, which makes sense.
Sure.
And he's been wrestling for 20 years now.
Yeah.
But he can pull out a Mongolian chop and I will
Right.
freak out, you know? And it's like he knows how to utilize his movements in the ring to
Right.
make you understand what's going on. And he doesn't have to jump off the top rope. He doesn't have to do a flip, you know?
Yeah.
It's just great. And story, like, that's why I went to Chikara, was I felt as if AEW wasn't really satisfying my story urge
Right.
for a long time. And to find Chikara where it's just like seeped in like
It's story driven.
so
100%.
years long stories, years long feuds, things coming back up, going away, coming back, like
And it was such an easy watch. Like they had it in such like it was in seasons, but it was like perfectly like it was easy to watch each episode because like it has it breaks down perfectly to where it's seasons, episode of seasons, and then it's like an easy breakdown of each thing. So it's easier to find what you want to find by season.
oh yeah.
Rather than by like just a random episode.
Yeah, and it's really satisfying when you can watch a season and have a storyline that has started at the beginning of that season and see it fully play out over just that one season,
Yep.
and then really kind of conclude itself. So that's, you know, I think it's a really neat part of how Chikara planned things out. We just had a recent episode of the Opinion City podcast with Sydney Bacabella, and we were just talking about like the long-term storytelling and how like everything they did meant something, even if it took like 6 years down the road and you find out, you know, you get your conclusion, like everything meant something there.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, I mean, I never had so I haven't watched a lot of Chikara because obviously there's so much of
There's
it.
a lot.
And so I started when I was doing my rewatch, I was starting in 2011 because that's when they start to tease the Soldier Ant losing his memory storyline. And I wanted to watch that in full. And I was like, this is going to take me 3 seasons like, to watch this whole storyline because you have the tease and then you have when he actually gets brainwashed, and that's like an entire season of him being with the BDK. And it's just like, it was a lot. And you have everything else going on. So
with all of your work, talk to us about kind of like your process. Like for instance, you just made recently like the Wheel of Chikara, where it was like each color represented a different character of Chikara. How did you what was that process like to like pick and choose what color and what character you wanted to match the color, you know?
I mean, well, so that was actually like an artist meme going around at the time, where it was like the color wheel challenge, and then you would request people would request characters to draw, and then after a while, I just was like, actually, I'm just going to draw Chikara characters. That's all I wanted to draw.
Right.
And it was hard because also some people were very specific. Like a lot of people wanted me for Pink to do Larry Sweeney, but I haven't watched a lot of his matches, and so I felt as if I wouldn't do him justice just to draw him, just because people want me to draw him. Like I want to watch his stuff in my own time, you know. But then some people were totally easy, like you know. Fire Ant is going to be red,
right?
Of course. Sure. Who else could be red? So, yeah.
On the subject of Larry Sweeney, you need to go back if you haven't seen a lot of this yet. You need to go back and you need to search out. They used to run shows at I believe it was the American Legion in Hellertown. And you know they that was like their base for a while there. But those shows seem to feature during them at times Larry Sweeney and Ultramantis on commentary together. And they are literally the greatest commentary team in the history of wrestling. I'll put them up against anybody.
You thought JR and Lawler were good. Man.
It's incredible.
It's
I mean, I already love Mantis on commentary.
The chemistry between them is just
so
incredible.
Good.
They are, I mean, they are like a well-oiled, seasoned veteran comedy team, but they're not. Like, it's so good.
You're selling me. This sounds great.
Dude, Ralph can sell you anything that involves Chikara. You give him a star, a wrestler, he will sell you on them. That He sold me on them, and that was how we met. We met at a Chikara show.
Yeah, we met at a King of Trios.
And
Fun.
he was wearing his bow tie because it was because of Juan, and you had the Juan sign.
Yeah,
and
the old days.
oh
man,
Juan de Coronado. Dude, he used to be at every show, and he always had an assigned seat.
Yeah.
This guy had an
pretty
assigned
much,
seat
yeah.
up front
in
row
the front
with
row
this giant
every
yellow
time.
sign.
That's great.
Juan de Coronado.
The number
wonderful.
one fan. Yeah, actually,
You always
the signs-
knew. If you go back and watch like 5 years of Chikara, I'm sure you'll see Ralph every single time.
Yeah.
See.
it's crazy. But the thing is, like, again, it was an atmosphere. It was fun. As fans, you felt like a family, and you go to LVAC shows, so you know that like the LVAC is the closest thing I think we're ever going to get to that. And you feel like you meet people at shows, you go and hang out with the same people, you hang out with the wrestlers. Like it is such a family atmosphere. It's like the spiritual successor to Chikara.
Yeah,
it really feels like that.
I mean, they're having a few that seem that way. I know Camberley Brock was like the spiritual successor to Chikara for a minute. Sure. And then LVAC happened, and then I think also the Flying V is starting to become more of a feel of that too.
Good things about that one.
So all three of those are definitely an option if you miss those good old Chikara days back in Easton.
I wish Flying V was not so far away. I'd love to go to those shows.
Where is Flying V?
It's in Virginia, isn't it?
I believe so. Yeah.
Yeah. Because I know Boar wrestles down there all the time, and I like him, and so I'm always and also Boar.
Yes.
And then Logan Easton LaRue was wrestling
Easton
there.
LaRue, yeah. There you go.
He's always been very nice and a big fan of my art, so I always am like, I want to go see you, and then he retired.
He when he was in Chikara under another gimmick, he was drawing art there, and I remember there was one show where for $5 he would draw you a random picture. So somewhere in this room I have a terribly drawn stick figure picture of him making fun of the boar. It was just tremendous. But the Proletariat Boar was actually how I got into Chikara.
There you go.
I saw the boar first somewhere, and I was like, this is like the coolest thing I've ever seen. I need to see more of him. And then I find out he's in Chikara, and then I learn about Chikara, and it was just a whole snowball.
And the rest is history.
Yes, the rest is history.
So going back to your art a little bit, I'm curious, like, how long does it usually take you to do like those short stories, like to make the idea, draw it out, write the script if you have one, like.
I mean, the short ones I can do in a couple days to a week.
Okay.
Usually, and that was during COVID, so that was when I did not have a day job.
Right.
And it stems from an image that I have in my head or a couple lines that I write down in my journal. And then I kind of come back to it, and like that's what Laces was I just had this, because that one's more of like a poetry like image illustration thing. I just wrote it down, and then I edited it and then made it into what it is. Whereas the Hollow Wicked comic, that's the longest one I've done so far. That one took me a month.
Okay.
And that's like 36 pages, I think.
Oh wow. That's like
yeah. So but I was actually just talking about this today. I am a sprinter when it comes to art. I am very much like, I sit and I spend hours working on this thing while I still have the momentum. And I would love to become more of a marathon runner when it comes to I want to do graphic novels.
Yeah.
So that's a big thing right now, is me trying to transition into working on bigger projects, longer projects, and then holding the momentum while working on them. So
do you hand draw it first, or is it like all through digital, or is it like both?
It's all digital.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Getting my iPad in 2018 like changed my life. I never did digital art before that.
Okay.
And it was like of revelation, like drawing
yeah.
the screen.
Right.
Sure.
And I feel as if it is, I could not sing its praises enough. I feel like it pushed my art so far, so fast.
Right.
My ability to do color, because it was always limited by having to do watercolor or gouache.
Yeah.
I feel as if I can experiment more, so I take more risks. I do more fun stuff because you can just copy and paste things or erase them or copy the canvas and do it all over again.
Sure.
So I feel I owe doing digital work to like where I am today. I would definitely not be what I'm doing now and feel as confident in what I'm doing if I hadn't started doing digital work.
Right.
So, yeah.
Very cool. So is there anybody in sort of the Chikara universe that you haven't done something for that you're thinking you're interested in doing something for?
Gosh, now I'm like, I feel like I've drawn a lot of people already though, because I did the Chikara Tarot cards that I was working on.
Yes.
Right. Yeah.
And then that one I drew a lot of people that I hadn't done, like drawn full illustrations of. Like that was the first time I did I actually drew the boar and Erica Lee. I did. I was going to say that was the first time I drew him, but I did draw them after the first Steel Stack show that I went to.
Did you draw Dasher Hatfield and all them? The
No,
Hatfields?
so I haven't done any of the Hatfields yet. So they like
go.
I know I know his son character. I can't even remember what his name is. Weber. I know Weber.
Yes.
But so like, and
Weber
I've
Hatfield,
seen
yeah.
I've seen him and know him, but like I obviously I've watched like Dasher Hatfield matches. I just like they're just like not super my thing.
Right.
Like there's not something there at the point that I've watched that has like really gotten me, and I think it's because they're not weird enough.
Okay.
You need okay, so you need to look at Dasher. You need to look at Weber.
Yeah.
You need to look at Shay McCoy, who was Molly McCoy at the time, who is their cousin. There's Mr. Touchdown, the step cousin-in-law. There's a real weird family there.
There's a whole family there.
It is.
They're a whole.
It is a great family dynamic.
Yeah.
It would be like a weird family sitcom.
Yeah.
There you go.
Exactly. So I feel like the weird family stuff is later in Chikara, and I haven't gotten there yet.
Okay.
So that's
all right.
so I was only watching. So I mean, so that's the thing is I've only seen like the early 2011 stuff in that era.
Sure.
So that was like, I feel like there's a lot of people who came in later Chikara, 2017, 2018. People have come up to me and they're like, you gotta watch that era. There's so many people there. Some people who are still active, like, and I just have not been able. It's such a time commitment. So I just have not been able to like commit to watching that era yet.
There's so much I want to rewatch as far as Chikara goes, because I have all the King of Trios on DVD, and like I love to go back and watch like the old stuff. But you're right, it is
it's a lot.
It is so time consuming because they kept a hefty schedule. So you're talking about So for some seasons you've got one show a month, but then as it got later in years, I mean, they started running twice a month.
It was a lot.
Not to mention the baseball shows, the King of Trios weekend, which King of Trios, watching an entire King of Trios by itself is
good,
just
by the way.
So good, but just daunting.
A lot.
Yeah.
And I love to go back and watch the tag gauntlets on day 3 because that's where like it gets really silly and they bring in people you'd never think of and just hidden gems. But there's a lot of crazy stuff to happen yet. I would say, and this is, I'm throwing this out there because we talk about this whenever we talk about Chikara, but the Eye of Tyr is out there somewhere. The Eye of Tyr is still, nobody talks about this but me.
You're
I
so
feel like
honest,
but the Eye of Tyr is out there somewhere, and I feel like I feel like the Eye of Tyr would make a great subject for a comic book.
Yeah.
Oh,
Well, I mean,
yeah, absolutely.
that was partially kind of what my Hollow Wicked comic was about.
Mhm.
Okay.
Like, and not necessarily mentioning it, but it definitely brought up like
Sure.
Ultramantis'
'Cause it's-
possession and stuff
Right.
like
Because
that.
it's all a part of his story.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And I would definitely love to do more story stuff around that.
Yeah.
But I just don't know enough about it yet to do it.
I got you.
So,
Well, there's
You're not
there's
there
plenty
yet.
of time.
You're
Yes.
working on it. You're working on it. You're not there yet, but you're working on it.
Mhm.
So, other than the wrestling comics, what other comics have you done outside of wrestling?
Well, I mean, the wrestling, like the Plight of Orange Cassidy was essentially one of my first ever comics. Like I
Okay.
wanted to make them for a very, very long time. Like I did like an illustrated narrative for my
Oh.
thesis in college.
Cool.
But I didn't really have any guidance in terms of comics for a very long time. And I didn't feel confident enough in my art to just go for it and make it.
Right.
So that's it's a very recent thing for me to feel confident enough to make zines, to make comics.
Gotcha.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Sorry, my brain just like that's the question, right?
No, I asked
Yeah,
what
or-
were some other ones that you made other than wrestling ones?
Okay,
Anything
so-
other than
Yeah,
wrestling. Yeah.
because I know you made it some other than wrestling.
I'm trying to think of I've made I made like a single like self like a autobio comic.
Okay.
But
Okay.
it's like
That's
I made
cool.
that in November of 2022.
Okay.
That was just like a little thing I made just to try it out because I hate talking about myself.
right.
Like comic wise, I know a lot of people break into comics doing autobio stuff.
Yeah.
I don't want to do autobio. Like
Right,
obviously
right.
never
I'll
say
pass.
never, but I'd much rather tell a story that's not about
Right.
Sure.
me.
Sure.
Of course.
It's kind of funny to say that talking on a podcast about myself. But
Well, hey,
Listen, that's fine.
it's all good. Yeah.
but I know, but I don't think but I haven't really done anything. That's it. Just wrestling comics.
That's it.
Up to
Just
now.
wrestling.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm hoping to do
Sure.
an original graphic novel, but it's going to be
Ooh.
about
Mhm.
wrestling. So
Got you.
yeah.
That would be really cool.
Mhm.
So you talked about, we kind of see how you got into this with the love of wrestling. Getting into the comic books, are you a fan of comic books?
I mean, I grew up reading like Archie and Garfield.
Okay.
Dude,
All right.
I used to
So-
watch the same thing. Same
Yeah.
thing.
I mean, that was like, get my allowance, buy one of those Archie comics, or well, Betty and Veronica for me
Yeah.
Sure.
Yes.
for like $2.50 or whatever from Barnes and Nobles.
Right.
Far Side. My dad got me all the Far Side
yeah.
books.
Okay. Yeah.
And so I was not like a Marvel and DC comic reader.
Gotcha.
Got you.
And I over in my 20s, I would go to art conventions and I'd buy other people's indie comics. And so like I
Okay.
would build up, I have this huge shelf just full of zines and self-published comics.
Right.
Yeah.
And that was kind of how I was introduced to the fact that comics can be anything you want.
Yeah.
Um,
Absolutely.
they can be literally anything. They could be any drawing level. They can be any sort of story, which is both freeing and terrifying.
Right.
Yeah.
So
That's
yeah.
For sure. can-
crazy.
Mhm.
So with your art, what kind of goals do you have with your art moving forward? What do you want your audience to take away from, like your illustrations and your comics? What do you think your goals are moving forward?
Well, I did just talk with an editor today about
Ooh.
my graphic novel
nice.
that I started writing in 2021.
Okay.
For a couple months, I worked really hard on it, and then I just got so like stopped up with it.
Right.
Mhm.
And it was just too sprawling. I needed another set of eyes on it. I needed
Mhm.
like help condensing it.
Right.
And so I just kind of left it. And going to these art conventions that I've been going to the past half year, meeting other artists, they were like, you should talk to someone about it. Like, it's their job, where they like look at stuff like that.
Yeah.
So that, as of kind of today, I think I'm going to try and work on that going forward.
Yeah.
That's really cool.
That's awesome.
I had been wanting to do a comic retelling of The Virginian by Owen Wister.
Oh,
but I think that's going to go to the back burner, and I'm going to focus on the wrestling one.
Right.
I have it, and it means something to me.
Yeah.
And it's original. So.
I some time ago, and we're going back a couple of years now, but I actually started putting together a graphic novel as well. Now I have no art skills whatsoever. Like
you did, Ralph?
This is breaking news here. But I started to put together this idea for a graphic novel, and actually we're going to be releasing a new podcast very soon through the Ben Frank Connection. It is called Tabletop Baristas.
Yes.
And it is my friend Joe and I actually create our own tabletop role-playing games.
Mm-hmm.
And so we're going to focus on talking about that and talking about one that he recently, we've played it recently, but he created it some time ago. But we spent a full year putting together every idea and possibility, building this world that the graphic novel is in. And that took so much out of me that by the time we got everything done, I was just like, I don't know if I can keep doing this. Like, it's just so I understand where you're coming from, where it's just like, you get that, especially when you're someone like a sprinter, you mentioned, trying to get things, and you always want to like get things done right away and spend 1,000 hours on this to make it, and you just, you burn out. That, and I couldn't find an artist either. So, at the time it was a little tough, but so I understand completely where you're coming from. Yes, you've got the total package there.
Now, are you a huge music fan as well?
Yeah. I mean, I feel like how can anyone say that they're not a fan of music?
Well, I mean, of course, but like, so do you know Coheed and Cambria, the band?
I know the name. I've never listened to them.
Okay. They have, man, if you ever get a chance to want to do like world building, so all of their music is based off of their world. They have a whole comic book series called the Amory Wars. It's since their first album. So if you listen to their albums, it follows the same. It's like the album and the comic go hand in hand. You listen to the album, you read the graphic novel, but it's such a huge world building. I think it's so amazing that you can have a soundtrack almost that follows the comic books, and you can follow both and have this whole entire world around you, just from music and comics. Yeah,
I love when things span multiple like mediums to make something. It's very fun.
I think that I feel like Chikara did that too, where they literally used every possible asset they could to make their own world.
Oh yeah. I think that's part of the appeal, because sometimes you watch wrestling and it's just like, okay, I'm just watching a bunch of guys in the ring wrestling. There's not really this cohesion to it. There's not really, it's why they talk about storytelling being such an important part of what you're doing, because it's what draws people in. And I mean, Chikara was just master storytellers.
Sing its praises,
nothing
always.
else. That's
all we do.
Look,
that's all we do. We sing its praises.
I'm a huge proponent of anything Chikara.
Our first half of our guests were all from the old Chikara days. We had Ultimate Ant, Razorhawk, Avery Good.
Just pulling everybody in we could, because
Chikara crazy.
Yeah, but we're definitely Chikara Pro on this show. Chikara Pro on this show.
I see what you did there.
So I noticed something online, and I believe I just noticed it today. But let's talk about this a little bit. You mentioned going to art conventions. You're presenting an art gallery. Is that correct?
Yeah.
Yay.
That's some very exciting news. Let's talk about that.
Yeah, I mean,
Do
I
it.
was actually just thinking about it because my brain made a whole bunch of jumps to get there. But and I was like, oh, I got to mention that at the end. But yeah, I was asked to be in a by like an old college friend to be in a gallery show that's being hosted for like comic arts through Pace University. So it's at
That's
their
awesome.
gallery. And I'm actually, I'm going to be displaying 3 of my comics, which I've already made. I'm doing the Laces, the Ultramantis Black one, Playa Orange Cassie, and then the Hollow Wicked comic.
Nice.
And I am hoping to display my Chikara Tarot there, which will be the first time all of them have been printed out and are like there.
All there
big.
together.
That's
Yeah.
so cool. Yeah. Yeah.
So that's gonna be very fun. Yeah, that's next month. I don't know when this will come out.
This will come out. This will come out actually right before your show. So like,
Okay,
Right.
yeah.
There you go.
the week
So
before
February
your show, it'll come out.
13th. Yes.
Yes.
February 13th, New York City. If you're there, Pace Gallery, right next to City Hall Park. Come on down. 5 to 7.
Do
Reception.
Do it.
That's awesome. That's very cool.
So
So
it's
is there
exciting.
anything on your artist bucket list that you would like to accomplish maybe this year?
I mean, this year. That's very
Well, how about in general? Just
Well,
in general.
yeah,
Maybe this
general.
year,
Yes.
in general, either way, you know.
more conventions. I'm applying to more conventions this year, which is a big
Very
one.
cool.
And eventually I want to have a graphic novel published.
Nice.
Be that independent publisher, or it wouldn't be a major publisher probably, but independent publisher.
You never know. You never know.
Yeah.
But I also just don't. I was actually just talking to my friend about this the other day, where none of it ever seems real. It just happens.
Yeah.
Like all of these things that suddenly happened this month, being on here, having the gallery show, talking to an editor, I suddenly was like, these are like real important milestones.
Yeah.
Like to be experiencing things like this and looking back on them. I feel like you can say, oh, I did this. Like even I talked on a panel at SPX last year about drawing wrestling art.
Nice.
Yeah,
nice.
that was very cool. I saw
And that was like
online. Yeah.
That's crazy. Someone asked me to talk about art to people in an audience.
Right. So cool.
But all of that, like I don't think of myself as being like a big hot shot, hoity-toity.
Right.
I'm a big artist now. I just make stuff that I like, and if other people like it, that's cool. And I always kind of, I guess, I plan on it never panning out, so it's always a surprise when it does, and people like it.
Yeah.
So that's kind of because for a long time, when you're learning and you're growing, and practicing, you're not always very good, and people don't really care. But if you care, that's the important part. And then suddenly, when you care enough, people start to care about what you're doing.
When we first started this whole thing, I sounded like I was on a garbage can.
This whole thing started. I was like 2 blocks away. I was like 2 blocks away from the camera a month ago, but it's something that evolves, and it's funny when you talk about like that feeling like about things that are finally happening, because we're hitting the same thing. I mean, we just had surreal moments yesterday. And it's like you're just like you're pinching yourself saying, man, am I really doing this? Like, is this really happening? But quality talent rises to the top. People see that, and they're drawn to it. So you've got a great base to go on there, because people are just absolutely drawn to what you do.
Yeah, absolutely.
Also, because I'm the only Chikara artist drawing stuff right now.
Right. But, that's also a thing. Too.
Well,
that's also
listen, when you find that niche, you hit it and you run with it.
You go.
So
I was going to say, in a lot of your comics, you seem to have more of like this horror vibe to it. Are you a big horror fan?
Yeah, I like horror stuff. I don't like modern horror.
Okay.
Like CGI horror.
Right.
because my brain cannot tell that it is fake. So like when it's practical effects, I can be like, oh yeah, that's freaking awesome. You know, it looks so cool. Like I like one of my favorite, my top 5 movies is An American Werewolf in London. And the scene where he transforms is so uncomfortable and so awful, but it's like so cool.
Right.
But then you give me like I will never watch The Grudge because bodies contorting. Well, that's my number one thing is I can't watch it. Like, have you ever seen REC, the Spanish version?
No, I've not.
So
I've heard it's so much worse than the
Grudge. The Quarantine. Well, so there's Quarantine was the American remake of REC because apparently American audiences can't watch anything that's not in English.
No.
Even if it's good. So in that movie, so that I watched in college and it gave me nightmares. And then I rewatched it in the past couple of years. And it is genuinely scary. Like, I don't really get like scared by movies a lot because I don't watch like Paranormal Activity or like any of those ones that they jump scare you or whatever. This one, I definitely recommend this movie because you want to be scared. Because it's basically like they're locked in an apartment building. There's an infectious disease and it's turning people into like zombies essentially. Some sort of infected human being. And there are 2 scenes specifically where they're like running up the stairs of the apartment building and being chased by these people, and they're like these noises they're making are like genuinely terrifying and horrible. Like just screams and like bleh. And then there's a thing at the end where I don't want to spoil it, but there's like it's like patient zero. And it's very, you know, it's like, oh God, it gave me nightmares. It was so horrible. I couldn't even watch it. The second time I was like, just tell me when it's over. I'm not gonna watch.
I'm so desensitized to horror movies because I have a friend that was really into horror movies and got me into horror movies, and we used to just watch stuff all the time, and I got to the point now where it takes a lot to really, you know, unsettle me. I will say
I refuse to watch Terrifier because of that. I refuse. Yeah. I've heard both of them are like, they're all practical effects, but they're like, they go all in, and I'm like, no, I'm good. I'm good.
Yeah.
I'll pass.
I feel as if like, so that's like, because Hollow Wicked always posts his like top movie picks and stuff.
Oh yeah, the arcade.
Yeah. And I just
he's got such a cool YouTube channel.
Yeah, I did the he actually commissioned me to do the thumbnails for his videos that he does where he picks out wrestling moves in horror movies. That was very cool. Anyway, no aside, he always recommends these films, and I'm always like, I can't watch like half of them because they're just like too much. I mean, I have a very not all artists are like this, but I have a very visual mind, and images stick in my head forever. So if I see something, it is in there for like at least a couple years, if not longer, if it's traumatized me.
Oh yeah.
So so that's why I'm like, I got to be careful.
Wow.
That's too funny.
This has been great getting a chance to talk to you about your art. Like I said, I've seen you at a bunch of shows before, and I've seen your stuff online, and
it's very cool.
We're very happy to be able to get you on here and talk a little bit about the stuff you're doing. We've got some information we're going to put on the screen. Why don't you go ahead and plug some stuff so everybody out there can know exactly how they can find you and how they can support you in every way possible.
Well, I mean, I'm Mina Coletta literally everywhere. If you see Mina Coletta on a website, it is me. I mean, I haven't been on social media a lot over the past couple months because I've been taking a little bit of a break, but hopefully I'll be coming back soon. I'm a lot more active on Instagram than I am on Twitter now that Elon has bought it.
Right, right.
And it's kind of
Yes.
fire.
Yes.
I post all my art on Tumblr, but you just get art over there. If you want to buy any of my prints or my comics, they're on my Store Envy shop. I mail everything from my tiny little bedroom.
Okay.
And also, I have my Patreon. It is currently paused because I have been taking a break. But hopefully, if I start picking back up with comic work and drawing later this year, that will be back up. And that is the most direct way, both my store and my Patreon, most direct ways you can monetarily support me so that I can make more awesome art.
Do that.
That is amazing.
Do
Yes,
that.
please go out and support everything that Tanya is doing, because her
Yes.
stuff is just amazing. She is doing a great service for wrestling fans,
Absolutely.
fans of Chikara, comic
Yeah.
book fans. It's really been great.
Many people have said, I started watching Chikara because you started drawing it. So I'm like,
There
yes.
you go. There you go. That's
So
That
it
is-
is a service.
That's it.
That's
it.
amazing. I
That's
love it. All right. Well, we want to thank you for being our guest on
Thank
this
you.
episode of Wrestling with Life. It's been great being able to chat with you about all
Thank you
the
for having me.
awesome stuff you're doing. Yeah, it's been great. And
Great.
folks, we want to thank you for joining us on this episode. If you're a Patreon, thank you very, very much for supporting us.
Yes.
If you're not a Patreon, hit up
What are you doing?
patreon.com/OpinionCityPod. We've got great rewards for you. Chance to ask all kinds of questions.
on it.
Chance to get some merchandise.
Become
talk
part
to
of the
us.
show.
Yeah, absolutely. So that'll wrap things up for this episode of Wrestling with Life. We thank you
Yes.
for joining us,
Mhm.
and we will see you guys next time.
So long.
Hey, this is ABJ of the ABJ Podcast, and you're listening to the Opinion City Wrestling with Live series exclusively on Patreon. Enjoy.
Good night, sweetheart. Well, it's time to go. Good night, sweetheart. Well, it's time to go. I hate to leave you, but I really must say, oh, good night, sweetheart. Good night. Good night.
Okay, thanks for watching this presentation. Like, share, and subscribe for more.